The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Lang. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are kicking off our reviews of the player cards in the Path to Carcosa Investigator expansion. This is part one of our look at the Guardian cards in the box. In this episode, we are going to discuss 32 Colt, Trench Knife, True Grit, and I'll See You in Hell. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get started, a quick reminder of how we rate cards here on The Whisper in Darkness. The best of the best get an Elder Sign, while the worst of the worst get an Auto Fail, and the cards in between get a +1, 0, or Elder Thing respectively. Cards that you build around or cards that are good in one particular deck get a Bless token, while cards that we believe are destined to end up on the list of taboos or are simply bad for the big game get a Curse token. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. You all rock. If you'd like to be amazing like these people and support the channel's goals and see your name on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Special thanks to Cole Monroe Chitty, Nicole Fiscus, and Nate Lost in Time and Space for their contributions to the channel. I couldn't do it without you. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to our reviews of the player cards in the Arkham Horror LCG. We have the whole gang together to begin to tackle the Path to Carcosa, the third cycle that was released way back when, and then since re-released in the Investigator expansion and Campaign expansion. How are you guys doing? Welcome back, Nate.
Yeah, Nate, how's it going? How was where did you were in Nakotas last time I heard? Is that correct?
Yeah, I eventually found my way out through some
nice.
experimentation. Yeah.
So we're all together. We are going to review the player cards in Carcosa, and then we'll move on to the Forgotten Age and probably Circle Undone, which is the latest repackaging that they just released. Not a whole lot of information on the next set. It's been pretty quiet from FFG on that front, but we're going to keep on creating content, and we have a couple other irons in the fire. The first card we're going to talk about is the 32 Colt. It is a 3-cost asset with a combat skill icon, item, weapon, and firearm trait. Uses 6 ammo. As an action, spend 1 ammo, fight. You deal +1 damage for this attack, and it takes up a hand slot. Thoughts about the 32 Colt?
I've always quite liked this card. Yeah. You get 2 ammo per resource. That's a really good rate.
Oh yeah, compare that to like 4 for 4 from the base 45 automatic. Yeah. They're just actually pretty good. Yeah, it is a lot of ammo, and that's like the thing it's got going for it. The only downside is that you don't get an attack boost, but it seems appropriate for Mark Harrigan, who's in the box, right? Like he can make a good use of this, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It also takes up 1 hand slot too, right? So it's a really nice side weapon. Like Mark can use this very effectively to kill like 3 combat enemies without needing to commit anything else.
Oh,
and
that's
then
true.
If you have something like Beat Cop on the table, then you're at 6, and then you're basically killing every small enemy in the game at that point.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
true.
You could use your other hand slot for something like the 45.
Or Machete, in case, for when you're one-on-oneing something.
Yeah, you probably want something with a bigger combat boost, so like something like the 45 that pushes you up to like an 8.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It's like at that point, like you get pretty diminishing returns on how much of a boost you're gonna get in most difficulties. So.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah, at a certain point, it becomes
really
more about
good,
more damage.
Personally.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's very underrated, the 32 Colt, but I think like if you're playing a 5 combat investigator, I think it really shines.
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. I mean,
okay, cool.
If you have Bandolier, especially, then you just kind of tuck this into your back pocket. You shoot off all the small enemies with this, and have your bigger weapon to kill off the big baddie.
Yeah, I should note it is the cheapest Guardian firearm out there at 3 resources, and it does have a level 2 upgrade in the Return to the Path to Carcosa box that is even cheaper. I believe it's 2 resources. and it gives you the ability to bounce the Colt back to your hand and replay it. So you can fire off 6 ammo, bounce the Colt back to your hand, and then replay it. So you can getting a ton of ammo that way. So that's a pretty nice upgrade for 2. I have played this in Mark Harrigan primarily because he does have 5 combat. Since I believe Mark was the first investigator we had with 5. And since then we have, I believe there's Tony Morgan now, there's Daniela, there might be one or two others. There's not a lot of investigators who have 5 that
Nathaniel Cho.
Nathaniel is the other one, but he's not really, he's sort of doing his own thing with his deck. So, but a very, very solid weapon that is very generous when it comes to ammo. Of course, it has the +1 damage, which is very important. The only downside is the lack of a combat boost. So if you are playing an investigator with 5 combat, you may need to pack some skills to push this thing over the top if you are fighting anything really, really dangerous. But if you're building a Guardian deck without any combat skill icons in your deck, I don't know really what you're doing. So yeah, overall, how would you guys rate this one?
I give this a solid +1. This is a really good card in general, I think. I don't even know if necessarily you need to have 5 combat to play this card, but you definitely need some other additional boost to your combat if you want to reliably use it. But I mean, generally you're looking for extra damage in your weapons, and this provides a lot of extra damage.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, and it's and it helps over the long haul because six ammo is quite a bit. Yeah, I think I'll go +1 a lot. I know that this one's kind of, I think it came out in a time when it came out originally in a time when the pattern of play was to use your machete for everything, but it doesn't work for everything. And when it doesn't, I think the Colt is kind of where it's at. Yeah, if you're already loading up on, combat boosts anyway, then this is pretty good. Yeah, I like this card. Yeah, I need to play this more, I think.
I think especially in Mark, because he has Sophie.
Yeah, so you just boost whenever you want. Yeah,
right.
True.
It's like you have Sophie and then a beat cop, and then what do you need it for, honestly? Like, you're at 8.
Yeah. Yeah, and also as time goes on, like in the fuller card pool, we've had more and more assets that increase your combat permanently. That's like when this first came out, like you had beat cop, but that was about it, and beat cop's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But as time has gone on, we've had more ways to get your combat higher. And so then, and if you have other ways to get your combat higher, then this gets better and better. I'm thinking like William Yorick, for example, if you're playing like Jessica Hyde. So like you get to play Jessica Hyde, and now it's another option besides just beat cops to actually be able to fire this thing. Yeah, is what I'm getting at. So I think this thing gets better. Its stock goes up as time goes on, and you have more ways to overcome the lack of a combat boost.
Yeah, I think at the time when this was first released, I tended to primarily play it only with Mark, but I think you could probably get away with playing it in probably 4 combat. I don't think I'd go any lower than that, though. 3 is, I think 3 would be a stretch, unless of course you're playing a lot of skills and combat boosters, but I will also give this one a +1 because 6 ammo and +1 damage, can't really go wrong with that, and the price is right. So a very solid weapon for Guardians in the Path to Carcosa. Unfortunately, the next card in the box is not a solid weapon for Guardians. Unfortunately, this is Trench Knife. 1 cost asset, item, weapon, and melee trait. Engage actions you perform do not provoke attacks of opportunity. As an action you may fight, you get +X combat for this attack. X is the number of enemies engaged with you, and Trench Knife takes up a hand slot. It seemed in the first couple sets that were released, Guardians always got some kind of wacky weapon.
Yeah, it's true.
That tried to fill a niche. We had Blackjack back in the Dunwich Legacy, and then they followed that up with the very underwhelming Trench Knife. I guess on the plus side, it is dirt cheap. It prevents AOs while you're engaging enemies, which I don't know how often that happens. Certainly not as a solo player. I don't really need that. The biggest problem, I guess, is, now you've engaged all these enemies and you have this really crappy weapon to try to kill them.
Yeah, it's true.
Which just seems self-defeating. What do you guys think about this one?
I think this isn't actually a weapon. What I think it is.
I see. Yeah.
It's a passive ability that just happens to take up a hand slot and also happens to have a fight action on it.
Oh, I get you. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
I'll tell you guys a little bit of a story here. So I played a campaign of Carcosa with a buddy of mine, and I played Ashcan Pete, and he played Zoe, and he put Bandolier in this card in his deck, and he would just use this card to allow him to just grab all the enemies all the time. So
it's Zoe. He gets rewarded for it.
He gets money, yeah. So it made sense in that particular build, and I could see it also in Mark, given the context of if you just have like these three sets, like the core, Dunwich, and then this, where you want to be able to control the damage that you take with Mark, because you want to use Mark's damage for Sophie or something like that. You don't want to just take damage willy-nilly. So having Trench Knife as just there to allow you to engage enemies and use your health more effectively can be helpful. But aside from that, it's really bad.
So I think with Trench Knife, and I noticed Bandolier does the same thing, they both seem to fill the niche of overcoming the problem of attacking enemies engaged with other investigators being like a really scary proposition. I think that's what they both try to do. I do see what you mean, Nate, about engage actions you perform not provoking. Like it's a very niche circumstance, because what you would normally do is just shoot the thing engaged with you and then shoot the thing engaged with your buddy, no problem. Yeah, but if you're afraid about hitting your friend, then this starts to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where they're going here with this thing. Engage actions you perform do not provoke attacks of opportunity. Yeah, I could see a low XP build if you were doing like Machete and Trench Knife, because Machete you have to be engaged with the things in order to get bonus damage. So like I can understand that. Yeah, but you're right. Like at one cost, this does feel like it's a passive effect on a hand slot. Yeah, you're right, because it's so cheap.
Yeah, and the fight ability just gets worse the more enemies you kill. So it's like it's not really worth the bonus. I mean, unless you literally have nothing else, but.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you need to do 1 damage, I guess it's fine.
Yeah, like if you have a gun in one hand and you have this, and you just kind of poke at the enemy with this, and then you shoot it and kill it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably fine.
The one thing I noticed looking back, I guess, at the Path to Carcosa cards is that a lot of them seem to be focused on like a 2-player game. Where they're trying to provide some sort of action compression in those lower player counts. Whereas I think in higher player counts, like you said, Matastrophic, because you've got 12 actions versus 6, solving the problem is a lot easier. And so you don't need a lot of these cards that provide this sort of minor action compression effect, where it's just like, if you're in 2-player, you're afraid of shooting your friend in the face with the gun, so you take that in engage action. I think if you're playing in higher player counts, people are just like, I'm just going to shoot you and hope for the best. Or somebody else will do something. Like, the problem will be solved. We don't need this thing to engage things off of you or stuff like that. And I think this is one of those cards where it feels like I think there was was it Heroic Sacrifice or Heroic Rescue, and cards like Ambush and stuff like that sort of fall into this category too, where it feels like they're trying to sort of smooth out the 2-player game, but at higher player counts it's just like, why bother with
Whatever.
this? You know, it's just
Oh
we
yeah.
have other ways to solve these problems that don't involve taking engage actions. But
I see what you
yeah,
mean. It's almost
I've
as
never
if
played this card and probably never will. So
yeah, I see what you mean. It's almost seems like this is designed for the party of Mark and Daisy. You know, it's like we're gonna have Mark do all of the fighting and Daisy do all of the investigating, and nothing in between. Yeah, I can definitely. I see where you're coming from here. Where if you have like 3 or 4 players, like you can like strategize. You know, as opposed to like taking the encounter deck and just taking the encounter deck as given and just square pegging the thing. Yeah, when you can strategize, you don't need to be taking lots of engage actions. You
Yeah, or
just
like even in 3-player, the third player can engage and evade, and then it doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Uh-huh.
Really.
And not to mention all the technology that's come out since then that really helps with you just don't even need to take the engage action at all. You
Or
know, with
something
all the
else
stuff.
also gives you the engage action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that's definitely changed in you know, in like the latter half of the card pool is you get a lot of ways to like it's almost as if engage becomes like the afterthought for you to just use a card to deal with. Yeah. Okay. As opposed to this where it's like engage is the one thing it does. Okay.
yeah, just to elaborate a little bit, it's like you said, it does seem like it's like sort of the Mark and Daisy card where, say during Mythos, Mark has already drawn an enemy and Daisy draws an enemy, and he's like, oh well, now I have to take
this off of
this.
you.
I have to get that enemy off of you. Whereas in a higher
Yeah.
player count, it'd be like you've got two other players who can
Work
help
together.
solve that
You know?
problem, and so it's, you know,
Yeah.
taking Mark isn't in that position where he's like, oh, I have to engage this thing off you, and I don't want to get attacked. So
It also seems like one of those cards where it's almost as if the designers it's like it's one of those cards that assumes that Daisy is completely ineffective at anything but investigating. If that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah, where
it
it's
does.
like Daisy has an evade score. You can commit icons to it. You know, it's almost seems like the silent assumption that and by the way, Mark can't evade anything either. That's why he has to like engage everything and be engaged with multiple things and stuff. Yeah, it seems like one of those where it's like you might as well be 0-0-5-0, and Daisy might as well be 0-5-0-0.
Well, there
Yeah.
is also some benefit to engaging large amounts of enemies as well, because like it is kind of the idea with this card is that you're supposed to engage all the enemies so you get a bigger bonus, and then there's
Yeah.
also some other cards like I'll See You in Hell that you want to engage all the enemies to get the key so you blow them up.
Oh yeah. So when you Dynamite Blast, you get all the AOs and then you go out in a real blaze of glory. That's the plan. It's really about Dynamite Blast.
yeah,
But
it's interesting that this card sort of assumes that Daisy is, or you know, the investigator you're engaging all the enemies off of is helpless, when even in the Path to Carcosa card pool, like Daisy gets a card like Archaic Glyphs Prophecy Foretold, which lets her investigate and evade an enemy with one action. So you don't need to worry about engaging enemies off her. She already has a way around that. So
yeah, but sometimes you just don't have that. Like you just don't draw it. You don't see it.
Yeah.
And in those cases, it's like, yeah, okay, like, or Daisy's about to die. Like Daisy can't afford to retaliate or something like that. So it's like, okay, I'll get it off of you so you return.
Yeah, it almost like it gets to a larger thing, and it is a bit early to be talking about Seekers, but it's almost as if in the early sets, Seekers suffer from the same syndrome that Wizards and D&D did, where they were both incredibly fragile, you know, if things go badly, but they're also like incredibly powerful because of all the patches they get to overcome their weaknesses. If that makes sense, where it's like,
it does, yeah.
okay, or it gets to a point where might as well just make the whole strategy be around protecting the Seeker, and then you'll probably win. But then again, the Seeker can also perfectly capable of protecting themselves, you know, and you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it that way. Yeah, it's just, I think it's like a syndrome you can get into, you know, as when you're building anything involving a party.
so how would you guys rate this one?
I think I'm willing to give it an Elder Thing simply because it actually has some use case, but I mean, it's not great.
Nah, personally, I would run heroic rescue over this for like the one time that you
Oh,
actually like, you know
see,
what I
that's
mean?
funny. I would much rather run this than heroic rescue.
Okay, fair, fair, fair. You know, we can both stay on the. We can have different opinions and be friends. That's the message we want to give out today, everybody. We can have different opinions and still be friends. You and
So,
your
what is
cringe
it? What
knife
is your
tribe.
rating, Matastrophic?
Oh,
Is your
tentacle.
rating
Never
the
do.
same as mine?
Oh, you know, I said that whole thing about both being friends, but whichever side that Man from Lake comes on, then we're the correct tribe, and then you have to be the outcast, Nate.
That's
Well,
fine.
I'm definitely giving this an auto fail. Like I said,
Boom! Look
I've
at that.
never
Now we're
played it, and
correct.
even though I don't
Majority is
play
correct.
multiplayer all that often,
Yeah.
would never bother with this card. Even if I was playing in a limited environment, like if I was playing like a random deck or something like that, this thing is just not very good at what it
Oh
does.
man.
The
Now
next
choose it to
card we're going to
proxy.
talk about is True Grit. It is a 3-cost asset with a willpower skill icon talent trait. True Grit may be assigned damage dealt to other investigators at your location. It has 3 health and 0 sanity. So this is leans into the theme that Guardians may be assigned damage dealt to other investigators. It's noteworthy that it does not require a slot, which was the case for Bulletproof Vest. This does cost slightly more than Bulletproof Vest and doesn't have as much soak as that card, but it doesn't cost 3 XP either, which is a pretty big deal. The only downside I could sort of see on this one was that it is a little bit pricier than some of the other options out there. What do you guys think about this one?
I think my only real issue with this card is that it sort of feels like it competes with your allies in terms of
Oh, right.
what resources you have to spend on the board. Or it's like if you need soak, you generally go for an ally. And it's like,
Yeah.
yes, it does like help you soak damage on other investigators, but you just engage things generally, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have some amount of healing, maybe like a kit, but other than that, I don't think you really need soaking for other investigators, or those investigators play their own allies, and then you're usually fine. So this is a tough
Oh,
one because
yeah.
it's like not bad per se, but I feel like Guardians don't really have the extra resources to spend on stuff like this.
Yeah, I totally see what you mean. So it has an effect that's pretty unique in that it can soak damage for other investigators, which is nice. Like when the shit hits the fan, you really need it. I think in the card pool at this point, when you're talking about core Dunwich, Carcosa, I think this thing's not bad because I think it kind of shines when you're the guardian, you want to keep your ally on the table,
Mm-hmm.
like you're really relying on that beat cop. But if you don't But if you're using your allies as like actually really good soak, then this thing isn't really necessary. You might as well put in another ally as part of your revolving door. Man, you got me stuck in the Mark Daisy, paradigm.
I mean,
Like,
this is the
yeah,
box to talk about it because Mark does come in the box, and
yeah, it's true.
a lot of the cards are
Yeah,
very much geared towards that playstyle of protect
yeah,
the glass cannon.
yeah. At the same time, though, this is also when Daisy was able to start taking charisma and soak. Like Daisy was able to take charisma and take like art students and research librarians. So
Mm-hmm.
Daisy had good soak already. It's another
But
one of those things where like Daisy can protect herself. Yeah.
yeah, but Daisy might want to take Milan, and then you
Oh
really
yeah,
don't.
and have like one ally. That's true. That's
Mm-hmm.
true. Thus the charisma thing. She could go down the academic army route at this point in the card pool
Yeah,
though.
and Mark does have the ability to draw cards when you take damage on this thing, so it's not
Oh, that's
bad in
nice.
Mark per se. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because that's an extra opportunity to take damage during the Mythos phase. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you just took 2 from that. Did you just take 2 damage from that grasping hands? Can I have one of those?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. Yeah, take damage.
So
Get
in
crits. Yeah.
Mark, it's pretty useful. because you can make benefit in some other way with his ability or with using Sophie more because a piece of soak that you can use for other things. So it's not bad in the box, but I definitely feel like this is one of those cards that if we were talking about over the course of the length of the game, this one probably falls a bit to the wayside, but it's not bad.
Yeah, I think it might still have its place if in the pre-charisma days, like if you're going to play a deck that has a bunch of soak, but you can't afford charisma yet, then this isn't bad because you can play your primary ally, whether it's B Cop or later on Greta, and you have this as soak as well because you want to keep Greta on the table. And this is all before you can afford charisma, so I think it still has its place at 0 XP.
Yeah, I played this in a Mark deck when it was first released. I had one copy and it felt like I didn't play it every game because of the cost and the action it takes to play it. But sometimes it was very nice to have to be able to smooth out the way Mark deals with damage, and you don't want to get too, you want to take damage, but you don't want to take too much because otherwise then Sophie flips on you and then things get harder. So having a copy of this was nice, and it is level 0 and it gives you 3 soak, which is at this stage of the game.
Oh yeah,
there
bad.
Aren't other cards that really do that. And I think there are more, like as the card pool expands, we've received a lot more cards that could go into the body slot, but I don't know. It's still I think this one has its place. I don't know whether you play it outside of Mark necessarily, but it is nice to sort of have a level 0 option that provides significant soak.
Anybody who needs a bit of extra health soak but doesn't have charisma yet, like they could consider this card. Like I actually thinking back in memory lane, back in the old days of the card pool when we had to like drive uphill both ways to buy Mythos packs. Mythos packs, kids. I actually ran this in Lola Haze because it was slotless and did a thing, and kept me alive. Yeah.
How would you guys rate this one?
I give this a 0. I think like Matt said earlier, it's one of those cards that you put in early on and then eventually you'll upgrade out of it, but like you never feel bad about having it.
Yeah, I'd agree. For what it does, I think it's worth a 0. Yeah,
this one gets a 0 from me as well. I don't think I could rate it any less than that, simply because it does what it says on the card. If you're playing a game, and it's not like this is the first asset you're going to play, but if you've got it, you draw it, say, late game, then you can actually make a choice and say, okay, well, sure, I think I need it, or no, I'm going to take the risk and go without it. And it has a willpower skill icon, which is good too. So
yeah, it's not bad. I think considering what Guardians have access to at this point in the card pool, I think it's actually like pretty decent. Like compared to like Guard Dog, Guard Dog has 3 health and it takes a slot. Yeah, and then you have this as an alternative.
The next card we're going to talk about is the first event. This is I'll See You in Hell. It is a free event with 2 combat skill icons. The spirit trait: each non-elite enemy engaged with you is defeated. You are defeated and suffer 1 physical trauma. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. So we got a couple of these cards in the early set. There's a Seeker one that does something similar for clues. I like the 2 combat skill icons on this one because there are very few level 0 cards, even to this day, that have 2 combat skill icons. So if you are playing with a very limited card pool, I might actually consider it for those combat skill icons. Unfortunately, I don't think I've ever played this for its actual ability, and I don't think I ever will, although I can see why you would.
Ooh,
possibly.
why would you?
I would consider it only if I was playing a Guardian and I didn't want if I was put in a bad situation where I have to choose between physical or mental. I think most Guardians would prefer physical. So if you're gonna go down, sure, I'll take the physical. I think the biggest problem with this card is that sure, you're given that choice, but in order to pull it off, you actually have to, and get some sort of benefit, you need a way of engaging all of those enemies. So you're playing this card and then some other card to combo with it, and you're playing to lose, which I don't think anybody really likes to do. Like, you're preparing for the worst case scenario in the game. And I just don't think that worst case comes up enough to create this elaborate combo that, oh yeah, you know, we're going to have these enemies on the table, I'm going to taunt them all and then play I'll See You in Hell and wipe them all out. Like, that just doesn't. Now, we did receive Calvin in later sets who, you know, the physical trauma is...
He's special, though.
He's special.
He's special.
And I don't even think this sees play in Calvin decks, to be honest. So
yeah, because you end your game. Like, why would you do that? Oh, I gotta go home, everybody. See you in hell. Bye.
What do you guys think about this one?
I will say all the things you said are absolutely true. Most of the time, this card is just a worst overpower. But like you said, also, there aren't a lot of overpowers in the card pool as of this point. So this is 3 and 4, and that's not bad.
True.
So it's like between those and Unexpected Courage, now all of a sudden you've got a good amount of combat skill icons, if that's the route you want to go. And I have had this card win me a game.
Oh.
So
right,
I mean,
story time.
So in the same campaign where we were playing the Ashcan Zoe thing, and Zoe was doing stuff with the trench knife. So there is, you know, there's a plan there, right? Where you trench knife things onto you, and then you. And we were trying to escape from the asylum, and Zoe was going to die anyway, but I had a chance to get out of the choke point in the basement.
Yes, right.
And kaboom. And Zoe made her peace as she flicked open that lighter, and kaboom. And I managed to beat the scenario, and then we got to scenario 5. So, nice. I mean, that moment lives on forever in my memory. Card facilitates that, and that's really cool. But this card is not really that great, like mechanically. It's really cool though, so I'm glad it exists.
So, you know what this reminds me of? And there's like a few cards like this that are like so specific that they're like high stakes luck rolls in Call of Cthulhu, where it's like the one time you would never equip for it, you would never buy equipment, you would never like tweak your character to do this thing, but the one time it comes up, you want to be able to like have a chance at doing it. So it's almost like I wish there was this way to like go seek out a card from your collection, you know, when the one time comes up that you actually need it, you know, because like, you know, because you said it won you one game, but like out of hundreds of games. Yeah, I wish there was like a way to just like
there is one time. If this card was a tactic.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, then you could go do it. Yeah.
You'd stick to the plan. Oh man, that'd be so good.
Yeah, that'd just like the one time you need it. You're like, bam. I would feel better about it if you could engage, if it defeated all enemies at your location, because then you really are saving the day at that point. Yeah, because it's everything engaged with you. So like, it doesn't help you in the situation where you have to engage things and then defeat them. Because remember, you take attacks of opportunity from engaging, unless you have the trench knife. You know, then so it doesn't like completely help you there. So I guess what I'm saying is it's not like the total silver bullet. You know, because
That's what. Yeah, you'd like kind of need Trench Knife, and that's why it worked in that one Zoe deck because that's what my buddy was trying to do with the deck was engage a bunch of stuff and kill everything for me so that I could clear the way and investigate.
Yeah, and often enough, like in my multiplayer experiences, like you don't even need this. Like I see why this would be good in multiplayer, but at the same time, this is when you have teamwork. Because this is when I think Arkham gets great in 4-player is when you go, okay, guys, the Mythos deck is stacked up against us. All right, if I do this and you do that and you do that and you do that, and we don't fail too many times, we're gonna be okay. In my experience, the time when this card is good is also like the best Arkham times, for getting out of it without cards like this. You know what I mean? Like puzzling through them.
But I think kind of going back to man from Lang's point earlier is that a lot of these cards feel like they were specifically designed for 2-player.
Yeah.
Because the Seeker, hell no, they're not going to be able to defeat 3 enemies in three actions. That's not generally going to happen.
Yeah.
But if the Guardian can just blow them up and the Seeker can get that last couple of clues or whatever so they can move on, then cool.
Yeah, it also assumes that the Guardian has no clues, because remember, when you defeat it, you drop your clues.
Yes.
Which, so then the Seeker has to pick them back up if you've got them. So,
which might not be the end of the world.
True, but it doesn't feel like the silver bullet, that this wants to be.
How would you guys rate this one?
I'm gonna give it an Elder Thing because it has 2 skill icons.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I'll give it an Elder Thing for the 2 skill icons.
Yeah, I think yeah, and I'll agree because at this point, if you have a small card pool and it's 0 XP, it has its 2 icons, and I think a lot of players would default to just putting in another kind of mediocre asset, and I think there are a lot of mediocre assets that I would rather put in the deck than you know what I'm saying? There are a lot you could do a lot worse than like a generic two combat icon card.
Yeah,
so
I totally
I'll also give it another thing.
Like, it's not a card that you really feel great about, but at least it does what it has on the 2 skill icon. So like you get that out of it, and then in the 1 out of a million games where you actually need that ability, oh man, it's great.
I do wish it blew up everything at the location, because then it becomes the real silver bullet.
Oh, come on. Okay. Yeah, come on, man.
That's okay. It's okay.
Maybe if they had given it the tactic trait, that would have been...
Yeah, that's the one thing I would be...
Maybe spirit and tactic.
Yeah,
I know why they gave it spirit, because, Calvin was probably thought of at the time, and they knew, okay, this is going to give you physical trauma. Calvin likes that, so we should give it the spirit trait. But tactic, I think, would have definitely made it a little more appealing, simply because you can stack it on, stick to the plan, and then
right, just put it aside, never have to draw it. Yeah,
it's like worst case. I'm Mark. I'm gonna go down. I don't want to take the mental trauma.
Yeah, although downside, if you put it on stick to the plan, you can't use the icons.
That's true. That's true.
Plus, Dynamite Blast goes on stick to the plan. That's what you do.
So, Elder Things all round for I'll See You in Hell. That's going to do it for part 1 of our look at the Guardian cards in the Path to Carcosa Investigator expansion. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Any final thoughts on this batch?
I think overall it's a pretty solid batch, I think. 32 Colts, pretty good. And Trench Knife does a thing, I guess.
It's
and Trigger's okay. I think for Mark, these are pretty necessary cards for your level 0 deck.
Yeah, I see what's going on there. It's interesting to the trip we've gone down inside the paradigm of Mark and Daisy. I think that's been an interesting journey, and looking at these cards from that very hyper specialized paradigm. Yeah, and whether you play that way, that's up to you. But if you do play that way, we understand how these cards fit into that.
Yeah, 50% ain't bad. 32 Colt is good. True Grit is good. Never played the Trench Knife and never played I'll See You in Hell. So.
Well, you can't. You're solo.
Yep. Nope. So, well, you can for the icons, and
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And if I was playing, a deck I randomly created on Arkham DB and I got I'll See You in Hell, I'd be like, well, it's actually better than quite
Random
a few of the
asset,
other
number
crappy
15.
cards that the program could have given you. I'd
I'll
much
take it
rather
over
have
knife.
I'd much rather have the 2 icons than, say, a blackjack or something else, which always seems to be one of the random cards you get somehow. So
100% of the time it randomly chooses blackjack, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it seems to, at least in the decks I generate.
Yeah,
I always seem to get a trench knife or a blackjack. So,
in fact, I'm gonna call you on this. I'm going to generate a random deck right now.
all
Do
right.
Mark Harrigan. Yep, I'm gonna auto generate one right now, and let's see what happens. Okay. I got 2 survival knives, but I didn't get blackjack.
Yeah, but did
Well,
you just do the first
survival
one,
knife is kind of like the trench knife blackjack of the Forgotten Age. So.
What did you say, Nate?
Did you just do it with the 3 sets?
All right, hold on. That takes like effort. All right, hold up. Core, Dunwich, Carcosa, and the Mythos packs. That's right, kids.
Mythos packs.
We used to have Mythos packs. I mean, if you want to like if you want to ask about some mental trauma, talk about the great Phantom of Truth shortage. That was some trauma right there. All right, here we go. Got blackjack. Yep, there it is. Yep, confined to the sets. Got it. Yep. And wait a minute. And I got 2 survival knives. Wait, what?
That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.